So, hello everyone, and thank you for joining this session. This session is intended to be like a catch-all call, session where if you have any questions, you have any obstacles, you're just curious to listen, or, around the topics of the generative AI challenge, and anything that around it that enables you to go from the idea all the way to submission on September 7th. So the it we'll open the floor for questions, and there will be a couple of polls to just as we were talking. But the purpose here is to see if there's any obstacles or any questions or any clarifications or additional work needed to help you get through the submission for the challenge.
Do we want to? Did you want to go through some of the steps
Yeah.
that we didn't cover last time?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. All right. Hey everybody. So just if you watched the video or attended the webinar from last session, I went through a number of steps in terms of how to create a project and how to integrate your design. And what we didn't really get to because of time is we didn't get through the last couple steps in terms of how do you upload your design to our platform, and how do you submit the jobs on our platform to complete the final GDS out or tape out process, so that so your design is ready for manufacturing. So I'm going to go through that at the beginning, just to cover that and make sure that we cover any questions, and we can provide some guidance on what those steps look like. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to make sure my audio is on. And just again, for in case you didn't see this before, I am going to be referencing some videos, and as we talk through these steps, all those videos you can find on our website. There's a Get Started button, kind of at the top of our homepage, that brings you to a set of videos. The ones I'm going to be walking through today are kind of at the end of this list, around uploading your design and submitting your job, Precheck and Tapeout jobs. There's also one around kind of creating an SSH key. So I'm going to be going through those specific steps. And again, on the previous webinar, we covered some additional content, including discussion around overview and setting up your desktop, but also kind of creating a repository, as well as like walking through the steps of implementing a design, integrating, implementing a design. So that's all on the second page. I got to that page again from a link at the top of this first video page right here, which talks about a series that demonstrate how to integrate the basic digital design with Caravel. All right, so with that, I will jump into the first piece where we left off last time. As we went through that whole process, we did physical implementation. I think we showed verification there, and then the next step is uploading your design to the eFabless platform. So I'm going to go ahead and show a video specifically on that step. I'm going to do that first, and then come back. There's also a step regarding creating SSH key, so we're going to come back and show you that kind of second, so you understand kind of the context for why you're doing that. All right. So here, I'm going to share this. I apologize if there is a ad, but hopefully we will skip those this time.
You can use an existing GitHub, LinkedIn, or Google account. After logging in, scroll down the page and choose the shuttle you want to take part in. Click the Start Project button. Set the name, visibility, description, and any labels. The URL field is optional and can be used to link to your project's page. You can also set a public image if you wish. Then click the Save button. A new empty eFabless repository will be created for you. If you followed the other videos, then you will already have GitHub set as the remote origin. We will
So just to I'm going to come back and touch on this earlier, but the piece that I think we missed at the very beginning was the link where how do you get to that create project page. So I'll come back and describe that here after the video completes.
we'll add a new remote called EF repo and use it to push the repository to eFabless. Open a terminal and change to your projects directory. Then copy the last commands shown and paste them into the terminal. This will create the new remote and push your design there. In the future, if you run git push only, the GitHub remote will be updated. If you also want to update the eFabless remote, you'll need to run git push EF repo. If you need help or support, the best place to go is the open source.
Okay, so let me recap a little bit there. So to start with, let me make sure it was clear. I'm going to bring up our site. I have to do that on a incognito tab just to avoid an issue I have with a cookie on my laptop. So I'm going to go and do that. So I'm logging into the oops. So I'm logging into our site. What's it doing? Or not? I must have hit the wrong link. Okay. So I'm just logging into the back end part of our site. So this is typically something you would get to when you on our main site, right? If you were to hit login or sign up, you would end up on this platform.efabless.com page. So now you're logged in, and what you're looking for is the shuttle to submit on. So this is there's a page here called active shuttles, and this has the you'll see it kind of a couple of cards here for open shuttles. The one that you want to submit to for this contest is CI 2309. The 09 is for September, right? 23 for 2023. And the button you want to click on is this start project button right here. Okay, so if I hit this start project button, I'm going to get a page like you saw in the video where I can start to create a project on the platform. Right. Okay. So then back on the video, just to kind of recap a little bit of the video, what we're essentially doing through here is you'll get a page like this one once you've completed that form, right? And it'll create effectively a Git repo on the eFabless platform, and it provides some instructions on how to push your design files to it. Right, and the way that that's done is using standard Git clients commands, but you're doing what's called adding an additional remote to your project. So you would have, in earlier videos, you would have created a project, somewhere, let's say on the GitHub. You would have cloned that locally. You would have implemented your design. And then when you go back to that local project, you would be adding a remote to that project, an additional remote. So you already have the one that you originally cloned from, but this is adding a second remote repository for your project, and you're going to be pushing a copy of your files to that second remote, which is the eFabless GitHub project that you're showing here. So that's conceptually what's going on, right? In order to do that, you do need to set up, there's a one-time kind of authentication you need to set up. So if I think you can see it here, you'll see to interact with this project, provide your SSH key here. We're going to be showing you how, next step is going to show you how to do that. So you in order to do this push, and for that push to be successful, you have to have permission to write to this repo on our eFabless platform. In order to do that, you have to create and install an SSH key. And so I'm going to show you that step next. All right, so let's go to that video. I'm going to open that up, and we'll walk through that step. Okay, so if you click on that link, you're going to get to a page that looks like the
Complete.
one which is
We will follow the instructions given in the repository settings. If you don't already have an SSH key, you can create one by following the instructions. Let's start by using SSH keygen. If you want to be extra secure, you can use a password. You'll then need to enter this password every time you want to update your repository. In this lesson, we'll skip the password by pressing enter twice. We now have the SSH key. Let's take a look at it. Copy the contents by highlighting everything and pressing Ctrl-Shift-C. Now scroll to the top of the page and press the Add SSH Key button. Paste in your key and press the Add button. Your key has now been added to your profile. If you need help or support, the best place to go is the open.
So that's it. That is using fairly standard tools. If you're familiar with that and have already done it before, it's pretty much the same process. You're just and then you just need to know kind of where to apply it. And then again, once you've done this once for your desktop, for a particular desktop, you don't need to repeat it again for other projects. If you do end up, setting up another desktop or doing work somewhere else, you'll need to install that same key either on that desktop, or you'll have to generate a new key for that desktop and add it to your list of keys on the eFabless platform. Okay, so I'm going to pause there for a second, see if there's any questions. Again, encourage everybody to submit questions through the Q&A facility in Zoom, which there should be a button that says Q&A on it on the toolbar. Okay, looks like I don't see any open ones. Looks like there was one asked but already answered by Tim. So I'm going to press forward and do the next step, which is submitting the Precheck and Tapeout jobs. Okay, so again, this last step is once I've finished, I got my design, I've done verification, I think I'm good to go, or at least I'm close enough where I want to see if I have any issues relative to Tapeout. Then you can go to our site and you can run, you can do that push, upload your design step we just talked about, and you can submit some jobs on our end on the platform to run what we call Precheck Job and the Tapeout Job. And so that's what this video is going to describe.
Some additional tests and also generates the fill. Fill is used to make sure that Tapeout Job linked in the description below.
There you go.
The Tapeout Job runs some additional tests and also generates the fill. Fill is used to make sure that each layer of the design has a consistent density. This is important for the manufacturing process. Precheck takes about 10 minutes and Tapeout takes about 2 hours. We recommend running these jobs regularly as your design proceeds to make sure that you have plenty of time to resolve issues. If your design is not yet uploaded onto the eFabless platform, check the video in the description on how to do this. Otherwise, make sure your repository is up to date before running the tests by running git push ef repo. Go to your eFabless repository and check the last commit is what you expect. Navigate to your project, then click Manage My Submission. To submit your project, you need to have all of these items green. The first job is the Precheck. Click the Submit button. You will be asked for a name. If you do not have a name in mind, then it's a good idea to use the commit hash of your last commit. This will help you debug a problem if the Precheck starts failing in the future. After about 10 minutes, the job will finish and you can check the logs. Click the little button to expand the jobs and you'll see all the previous jobs. Click the Logs button to see the logs of the job. This is where to check if you have problems. You can ask for help on the Precheck channel on the open source Silicon Slack community. Running the Tapeout is the same as the Precheck. You must first select a valid passing Precheck job to run it. Select the previous good Precheck in the dropdown and name the job. Again, we recommend using the git commit hash. The Tapeout job lasts about 2 hours. Note, the commit ID used by the selected Precheck job is the same commit ID that the Tapeout job will use. If you update your design in the future, you need to submit a new Precheck followed by a Tapeout job to pick up the change. After the job is finished, you can check the logs in the same way as the Precheck. If you need help or support, the best place to go is the open source Silicon Slack community. The link to join is in the description below.
Okay, great. So let me just cover a few key points. Just one of them I thought of as well, just in the overall process when you're creating your project, and we say, when you on that form for creating your project, there's a choice around the visibility for the design contest. You want to make sure you select public. The projects do need to be public for the submission, right? Or for this contest submission. So that's one piece. The pre-check, again, there's two. Once you've uploaded your design, there's really two steps in terms of completing this, what you need on the website or on our platform. One of those is a pre-check job. The pre-check job will do a number of checks, and I can show you a little bit of what. If you go to github.com, eFabless organization, you'll find a project called MPW Precheck. That is the check that's actually running. That's run. You can run it locally on your local platform, but this is also the same check that gets run on our platform, and it needs to be run on our platform in order to submit. But it describes what it checks in that, on that repo. So you can take a look to see kind of the specifics of what it's checking. It is checking just at a very high level. There needs to be some basics in place. Like make it, if you've done follow the procedure and you've started your project from the Careable user project repo that we provide, a number of these things are automatically going to get are going to be correct. So for example, like you have to have a make file at the top level that basically provides the targets for compressing and uncompressing the project. There's some licensing checks in there and some documentation checks that are included. Probably the key ones that most people would trip up over would be, one is there is a GPIO defines file. It's called userdefines.v in your Verilog directory. We covered that in the last webinar, talking about how you set those. But this check ensures that you did that. You have valid values for each of the GPIO for the power on configuration settings. There is an XOR check. So this XOR check will basically do a boundary check of your project to ensure that you've integrated to all the right pins and ports. If you're using an open lane flow, you almost never would have an issue relative to XOR. It's very rare. But if you're using another flow or doing something else, then it is possible that you may have, if you have something misaligned on the boundary, then this check will identify that and show you identify the error there. And then there's some basic DRC checks, including off-grid geometries and as well as a clear area density check. Again, most issues, if you're using open lane to implement your flow, you unlikely to run into any issue with respect to DRC or off-grid checks. Density checks, typically, if we have a density check, is coming up because of a choice or a selection that you made around a fill generation, like what fill cells you're using when you're implementing your design. Again, open lane's already configured to do that correctly. But again, if you're using another flow, you may run into a scenario where you didn't, you don't have the right, you didn't use decap. Like there's basically a mix of decap and fill to get the right density in the design to pass the manufacturing requirements. And so that if you're using a separate flow, you may need to tweak that to get it right, to get it to pass. Okay, so that's a little bit on pre-check, and then the tape-out job, as in the video, it's doing the integration of your GDS, right? The GDS for your user project wrapper. It's integrating that with the golden copy of Careable, and it's running the final steps to prep the GDS for submission to the foundry. One of those is fill generation, where it's going and putting dummy metal on metal layers to kind of get the right to fill in sparse areas and achieve a target density for each metal layer. There's a final check it runs on relative to DRC as well as density checks once all that work has been completed. Generally, if you're using OpenLane, you're probably not going to see an issue for tape out, but if you do, it could be related to the final density, the final density requirement, and that would probably come up in the case where you have a either using your own flow, or the other scenario that may come up is if you have a lot of high density memory macros in your design. So there is we've seen some issues with density related to that as well. Again, if you have any of those kinds of problems, reach out, ping us on Slack. We'll help you navigate through that. Okay, let me pause there and go back and check for questions. Okay, I don't see anything in the Q&A facility right now. Just give a few minutes. I know, Mohammed, you want to there's something else you want to cover? I think I covered all the those items related to submission.
Yeah, so we had so Andrea, I don't know if it was issued, but there are the polls since we have the team here, just if we can issue these polls.
Okay, I'll launch it right now.
Great, thank you.
People are still answering, so if we can give a few more seconds.
No problem.
Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Just so that you know, about 4 people say that they need help submitting the design. So it'll be good for us to understand what kind of help you need. So if you can submit those questions using the Q&A button, that'll be great. So I'm sharing the results, and as you can see, 4 people out of the 8 said, yes, we need some help. So this is the forum for you to ask questions and get that help.
And then if there, as we walk through this, if there is additional help that we can communicate over the Slack channel, and to address any in between webinars. So could you at least identify yourself to the panelists, and then we can follow up. And then what can if you could also add, as Andrea says, what is the what are the obstacles? Are they in the generative AI side, or is it in the back end open lane side, or is it in the submission process? I apologize that it's not interactive enough, so I don't have a very live understanding of what how to interact, and I think that maybe I'm able to change that in the future. But if you want to identify yourself, maybe raise your hand, and then we can you can type the question, and then we can answer it. And if you don't want to address it here, please go to the Slack channel for the Generative AI contest and ask the questions.
Well, Barath had a question that I answered in the Q&A, but I think it's a fairly common question that people are going to have, is that when, how do you integrate your generated AI solution into the Caravelle user project? For which I do have one comment I wanted to make, because I have been trying this myself with various experiments, and the definition for the Caravelle user project wrapper is over 2 years old, and that means that GPT-4 has been trained on it, so that you can, if you are using GPT as your generative AI, you can actually go to GPT and say, take this module and put it in the Caravelle user wrapper, and it will do it. Sometimes it doesn't do it correctly, and you have to add more detail to your prompt to get it to do it right, but it does know about it, and it can get the correct signals for it. The other choice is you get your AI to generate a top-level RTL of some sort. Then either way you do it, you will still follow the instructions to go to the Caravelle user project repository, clone that repository, and then either the top-level RTL that was generated by the AI, you put it manually into the user project wrapper, or else if you've managed to get it to create a wrapper for you, then you could just replace the existing wrapper with the one that the AI generated. Those are the two ways that I found that I can do it.
Yeah.
But most of that's still just following our standard instructions.
I thought in the first contest, Andy, I thought maybe Andy, you showed this, but you actually even provided the Caravelle user project wrapper RTL and said integrate with this, and it did it. But I'm not sure if that's the case or not.
Yeah, I literally directly pasted the user project wrapper RTL at a prompt in ChatGPT-4. And it did the integration just fine. I had examples where it failed on 1 or 2 pins, but most of the time with a paste of the RTL, which fits in the context length and a relatively simple top-level design, it did the design fine, did the integration.
Yeah, I do recall an instance in which we had difficulty giving it the wrapper definition as it was written. If we ripped out the existing contents and gave it the black box entry, it was able to fill that in.
Yeah, so I've done both. I've given it with the user project example in it and without the user project example in it. Both have worked for different complexities of designs. So those are some ideas, but it is trained, A, and B, the RTL pasted fits easily inside the context window. It's very small.
Yeah, and definitely encourage you to go back and look at the little walkthrough we did the last session on integrating your RTL, because we kind of that goes through some steps, but on exactly manually doing it, what you need to do it manually if you're not using AI. But just to again, to maybe as a pointer refresher, just to help guide you, where you want to go as eFabless Caravelle user project is where I'm going to kind of show or demonstrate this. This is what you will get when you clone your project. You'll get this code, but in the RTL directory, there is a user project wrapper.v, right? That's what you're essentially need to integrate into. And this is kind of providing all the, kind of here's the signaling kind of, or the header for the signaling for that module that you need to connect with, right? So obviously there's power up here, wishbone bus signaling here, right? And particularly if, the clock and reset signals, if you're not, creating any registers, but you just need clock and reset, then those are there. There's a logic analyzer ports here, and then there's the pads, the signaling for each of the GPIO pads that go around the pad framework exterior of Caravelle are here. And do ensure that you connect your OEB signals for any pads you're using based on the direction of your signal. So high for input and low for output, right? Because if you don't connect that, your signal will not propagate through the pad. That's just a bit of a recap. We did cover it in a little more depth on the last webinar.
We have 2 more questions, Jeff or Tim. So if you can read the question and answer, that'll be great.
I'm working on.
Okay.
Although the one question that's open from Bharath, I don't quite understand to the meaning to mail the link to the required mail ID. If you can clarify that a little. Yeah, the part I don't understand there is mail the link. If you follow the instructions that we have, then it's then you just submit the design through the eFabless website using our various forms that we have set up. Yes, only submitting it on the eFabless website should suffice.
Not sure I'm seeing the exchange.
Sorry, it's we're following the, yeah, it's a little hard to sync between the Q&A and the live session. But yeah, so yeah, he said, is it only necessary to just follow the instructions on the forms in eFabless? And I said yes. And then there was a question from Chinmay saying that they find it difficult to keep ChatGPT responses coherent. What I found is it makes a huge amount of difference whether you're using ChatGPT or ChatGPT Plus. So ChatGPT is based on GPT 3.5, which is good, but GPT 4.0 is much better and will stay coherent for much longer as well. GPT 3.5, I've had get into doom loops in which it tries to fix something and keeps breaking other things, and this can go on for time after time after time. Of course, to get GPT-4 access, you have to pay $20 a month. So, you have to spring for that. But as far as I'm concerned, for what I'm doing, it's well worth the $20 a month if it gets you the right answers. My suspicion there is that you're using GPT 3.5. Although I have, for small Verilog modules, I was able to get GPT 3.5 to give me reasonable answers, but it did have a tendency to make a lot of mistakes. And I'm assuming that, at least for the purposes of this challenge, that if you have submitted something created by a GPT, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think it's valid if it got 95% of the way and then you had to debug the rest. I assume we don't have any restrictions on that, right? The idea is that
you can finish the design manually, I believe. Is that what the question? Yeah,
right. I mean, the AI doesn't have to do 100% of the work, right? And we are looking for, I mean, obviously that's a great goal if you can get it to do that, but if the AI has generated most of it for you and saved you a lot of work, then you are demonstrating that the AI is increasing productivity, right? And yes, that's also a good goal.
Yeah, we did not have a requirement, and we were very clear about that in the initial fact, that the AI do 100% of the work. Obviously, the closer we can get to that goal, the better off we are in terms of acceleration, but that is not an absolute requirement. So as Tim said, finishing or integrating yourself, if that's something you need to do to be able to integrate the design, is fine, as is finishing the design if you're not able to get 100% of it out of the AI. But you've got to give us the information, both prompts and responses, that the AI did work on, and the RTL, the portion of the design that you got from the AI. We need both the working session and the design that came from the AI, so we can understand how it delivered and how it helped you get things done, and we can help bring other people up to the same point.
And I do think, just looking back at the question, I see Bharat's question around the email. So we did ask people to email once you submit a design, you got it on the platform, and you have it complete, is to send an email at shuttle at efabless.com, just confirming that you've submitted your design. So that is still, we still request that you do that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a contest, it's a challenge, right? So if one person has the AI produce something that was 50% right and somebody else gets it 95% right, then obviously we're going to favor the one that got it 95% right. A little bit ago, I just got through a test in which the GPT-4 produced something that had at least 20 separate errors in it. So by the time I got through debugging all of that, I wasn't sure whether the AI had saved me any time or not. I think it was a bit of a wash. So
there's also a factor of how complex the design is too, right? So
yeah, obviously. Well, that's why we have panelists to judge. But for your own benefit, there's never any harm in doing anything, no matter how simple it is, right? You don't know what the competition is until you've submitted until everybody's submitted something. So might as well give it a shot. And a great question, is this the future of engineering? To which I answer yes. This is the future of engineering. That's why we're doing it. That's why this whole concept of having an AI generate code for you is only, what, half a year old or so? Before that, AIs couldn't do squat. So yes, this is the future. Pay close attention to it. This is why we are jumping right on it and saying, let's do a challenge now, because if we wait a couple of months, it's too late.
Yeah, I would bear in mind for those on the call that 9 months ago, literally 9 months ago, almost to the day, when we first tried to use an AI to code Verilog, it was basically useless. We could get a couple of lines, or we could get coding assistance from Verilog. About 4 months ago, the first time we were able to get an intelligent block developed, tens of lines of RTL code that was first time correct if it was in the training base. And now we've got people coding hundreds of lines of Verilog, mostly correct in a few iterations. So the tools have come a very long way in a short period of time. That's not to say designers as a role will go away. They won't. They'll just be using improved tools from a productivity perspective, and we will be able to get more designs done much, much faster. And the world has a near endless desire to consume new chip designs. So if we can increase the productivity of the chip design teams, the productivity of semiconductor companies will go up, and people will see increased profits and more opportunity for everybody to share and benefit from that yield. And so it's not that I think people will go away. That's not what I think will happen. I think the productivity of the industry to satisfy the market is going to increase.
Keep asking general questions. These are great questions.
Well, yeah, and I think in addition, the complexity and the scope of what you can do, right? So it's not going to end a chip. It's not going to, the boundary's not going to meet the chip, right?
I was going to say, to answer Bharat's question, do I think we'll be competing with AI? Mohammed probably remembers, actually both Mohammeds probably remember, and I'm sure Tim does too, a period of time, a long time ago, when people manually reviewed design layouts before they take out. And I mean, at the polygon level for entire chips. And there was a time where the tools that did dynamic IR drop didn't exist, and people did things like review layouts for narrow pieces of metal, and you did it by hand or by eye on a light table. And so increasing the productivity of the tools doesn't result in the staff or engineering going away. It results in them working on higher value problems. And I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think the engineers will be competing with AI. The engineers will retrain to a higher productivity role, and we'll see an increased complexity of output and an increased productivity for the world as a result of it.
Manual IR drop inspection. Been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, there was a time when people used to stare at plots on paper on top of light tables, and before that, they used to cut mylar and actually look at polygons of plastic. So you know, the world has moved a very long way, and the tools do a lot more than they used to do.
Well, Mohammed, if you don't have any questions, I think we can call it a day. But maybe we can give another 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, we should do that. And then again, as Tim mentioned, the general questions are great questions. So just give it a couple of minutes and then we can conclude. And
There's one more question. To your knowledge, is there any analog-centric project done using ChatGPT?
well, I don't. Well, I'm sure there are. Okay. The question is, are they open or not? Number two is that are they doing everything like a full design or a piece of the design? So it's likely that it's the latter, a piece of the design, and accelerating or optimizing a part of the design. But it's not going to be a full like give me a full design in Sky 130 that for an ADC. So it has the complexity of the hierarchy and the interactive nature of working with the AI assistant. So now we're sniffing for these projects, and then if any shows up, it will be open source as well.
Yeah, I haven't caught wind of any such analog projects.
Yeah.
But I'm itching to try it myself.
Thanks, As. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and looking forward to hearing from you and seeing your submission.
Yeah, as always, we're around on the Slack channel. So the link to that Slack workspace is in the chat. I assume all of you, I know a number of you are on the Slack workspace already. So those of you who are know that I respond quite regularly and with great frequency to anybody who asks. So yeah, feel free to reach out anytime.
Great. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, everybody. All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.